Audio. Hello. Jill, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay online? Speaker is microphone. Okay, what?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
This is my computer. Syracuse, the state commission. Yeah. Syracuse. It's a lot warmer. Yeah.
Yes.
My son's on. Oh, really? I haven't heard that yet. Usually, here's I got a novel here. Here's but midway through senior year, someone who decided to get so big change. So he's going to do our post bag. Okay. I didn't know anything at all. I'm not sure it was even a big thing back then. Right. 12 months of just
Thank you so much.
Hello, just want to check. Can you all hear me online?
Yep, now we can.
Thank you. No, I didn't.
I couldn't tell if it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was somebody in the room, but I'll stick around. I want to go to that part. Just double, you know, do that. Just double check with somebody, say yes, and you say yes, and you can hear us. And make sure there's anything.
Sounds good.
I do the first. Once they finish with that, that's what they're doing.
Test, test. Can I just have some of our online attendees? Can you guys hear us okay?
Hi, Eddie.
Yes.
Sounds good.
I hear you, Dr. Spear, Dr. Cotter.
I can hear you too.
Yes.
Thank you guys. We were having some audio issues earlier, so I appreciate the confirmation. And we're just going to get started in maybe 30 seconds here. All right. Well, hopefully you guys are enjoying the dinner here. Want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for being here. Our VCSQI Spring in-person quarterly meeting, and hello to everybody online as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Tonight is really our spring meeting has become an annual tradition as a celebration of VCSQI and most importantly our members and our shared mission here, which is to improve patient care, transform cardiovascular care, improve patient experience and value. Our spring meeting will feature some awards, some data, a keynote presentation, a little bit of everything tonight. We'll go over the agenda in just a moment here, but we really just want to always come back to our mission, which is shown here at the bottom. But if I can just sum it up in one word, it's just the patients. That is our mission here. How we can collaborate, how we can branch across different institutions, different silos, and do what is best to improve the quality of cardiac care here. So without further ado, Sherri, I know you're still hooking up some wires, so I can buy some time if you want, but or I'll do my best Sherri impression as far as the Zoom attendees as well. This is more for our online folks, but we are in person here. We have probably 20, 30, maybe almost 40 people in the room here. It's a nice turnout on a beautiful spring evening here in Charlottesville. We do have a number of folks on the Zoom as well, so please, the audio is piped in, so if you can please just make sure you're muted unless you're called upon. You can always type in the chat and we will be monitoring that. And Sherri's phone is there too because she doesn't have enough to monitor right now, so you can text her as well. But yeah, if you can please raise your hand and use the chat feature, but we can unmute you. This is a CME event here. So this is our course description, target audience, nurses, physicians, and PAs. And these are the desired outcomes and goals of our event this evening. So we are registered, I think, for 2 CME credits tonight. To claim those, I think there's a slide coming up next. First, this is our formal agenda for the evening. So if Dr. Lancey is here, we will have some updates from Dr. Lancey. We will jump into our awards ceremony. I will then present our latest data and then our keynote presentation from Dr. Wayman and the Bon Secours team. Sherri, would you like to share a little bit more about the CME certification?
Hello, everyone. Of course, we have 2 hours of CME credit that is available courtesy of UVA. Of course, you all know, I think you all are familiar with the process. You just simply have to go online, and if you want to take a screenshot of this right now, I will send this out in the email as well with the recording and the minute and the presentation. But go ahead and snap a picture. This is the code. You have, it says 7 days, but it's counting today, so you technically have 6 days to claim that credit. After those days, it's going to expire and you're not able to claim the credit. And actually, I just see her back there. Hey, Amy. Amy is our UVA CME officer. She helps to make the CME possible for us. So thank you, Amy, for all that you do. For today's meeting, I do want to say we do not have any disclosures. So that was one part that I missed. There's no disclosures from any of our presenters, and we're so excited to have all of our presenters. And I'm looking forward to the Collaborator of the Year announcement. And I think, Eddie, that is all that I have. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Sherri. And just 2 other quick housekeeping items. First is for our online attendees, if you all in the room here have questions, we will make sure we pass around a mic just so folks can hear us okay. And on the CMEs, I think we have, Amy, is it 1 week to claim the credit, plus or minus? Oh, okay. Let's say 7, but yeah, just, and you can always just email us if you guys are experiencing any difficulty with the credits there. Thank you guys so much. So we are going to turn it over to our VCSQI chair, Dr. Lancey. He could not be here with us this evening, but Dr. Lancey, are you coming through online? Can you just say something to make sure we can hear you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Great.
I will turn it over to you, and just let me know when you want me to advance the slides as far as our board updates.
That's fine. You can go to the slide, the next slide from here. Great. So I apologize for not being there. I'm actually literally in the future. I'm halfway around the world in Australia, where it's already Friday, almost about noontime. So this is probably the first time you have someone reporting to you from the future. But again, I apologize for not being there, but I did want to mention a few quick things. The first of all, very important, we have a new board member, Dr. Berzingi from Carillion Roanoke. He is an interventional cardiologist. For those who do not know him, he's been actively involved in the VCSQI throughout the years, and we're absolutely delighted to have him agree to serve time on the board with the rest of us. So welcome to Dr. Berzingi. Earlier this year, we did an extensive review and updating of our bylaws, and I just wanted to pass on a few highlights, if you can indeed call reviewing bylaws anything to do with highlights. But we did two different things with the bylaws, one of which was to add a finance committee, which has already met a couple times and is a very highly functional committee led by Mike Brown, our treasurer. We have other membership, Pete O'Brien and Eddie, and it's a good group. We'll be looking at issues such as compensation, membership dues, maintaining the budget, keeping the organization financially healthy. And we also have added an executive committee, which is primarily of the leadership of the board that is available for any emergencies. I think it's going to be one of the least used committees of the board because of the time I've been on, I don't think we've had a single emergency. Things are run so well by Eddie and Sherri, but as any good board should have, an executive committee has to have a presence. So those are the two major additions to the bylaws. As a board, we've had internal discussions on the pros and cons of returning to presenting unblinded data rather than listing membership programs by code numbers when we present our quality data, as all of you are very familiar with. This is actually standard earlier in the days of the VCSQI. And in member surveys, some have called for a return to this practice. We've been discussing it again internally as a board in several meetings, identifying some of the pros and cons. It does help to identify programs that have potentially best practices that other programs can reach out to. But at the same time, some have expressed some concern about having their data out there, so to speak, and what can be a competitive environment. So these, again, are ongoing discussions that we're having. And I would absolutely welcome any input and feedback on this as we debate it as a board from any members at all. Please feel free to reach out to either Eddie, Sherri, or I, either by phone, email, or in person, and we'll happily bring those comments along to our discussions. And hopefully in the next month or two, we'll have reached a decision and move forward with whichever the group members, the VCSQI folks feel is probably the most important for our patient care. We've also been actively involved in recruiting and integrating ambulatory CAF PCI programs into the VCSQI. We think this is a really exciting and valuable addition to our data bank, and it provides these programs in exchange access to many of the protocols we have available through the organization. This again is an ongoing process, and Eddie can probably provide more details if you're interested, but we've received some enthusiastic responses from some of the ambulatory programs and are actively signing them up. So it looks like VCSQI is continuing to grow its members and its value to the heart care community. And finally, in this upcoming year, we'll have our annual survey of member programs, which as always, we strongly urge you to participate in. This is your organization, as Eddie says. I think that the VCSQI serves patients and the board serves the members is how I look at it. And really for us to serve member programs to the best of our abilities, we need to know what your needs are, what we're doing well, what not doing so well, any new ideas you have moving forward. So again, this is an important aspect of it. I mentioned already the transparency issue came up mainly from the surveys we've had. So we do listen and we do respond to what feedback we receive in the survey. So I encourage participation in that. I'll turn the mic back over to Eddie now to continue with the program. I'll be listening in, able to answer any questions at all, but I appreciate your indulgence with my phone in on this one and not my presence at the meeting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lancey. One other item we wanted to note this evening is the VHAC co-founder and also interventional cardiologist at Sentara Lynchburg, Dr. Pete O'Brien, is our newly appointed VCSQI vice chair. And Dr. O'Brien will be stepping up to serve as chair of the group beginning next year for his 2-year term. So welcome, Dr. O'Brien. Speech, anything to say?
You can trust there are no prepared remarks. Very, very excited. I'd be lying to say I'm not a little scared, following in some incredible footsteps. I'm a cardiologist, interventional cardiologist. This was originally started as a cardiac surgical organization, but has grown to really incorporate many facets of cardiovascular care, really from EMS right through the cath lab to the OR. So very, very excited. I think this is an incredibly stimulating time, challenging time. Eddie and I were talking about a range of issues that we're all going to be confronting in the year or years to come in terms of quality, but also the financial strains that our health systems are under. And I like the way Eddie put it, or maybe it was Eddie and Dr. Lancey, we're here to serve you so that you can serve your patients. So we are very passionate about that mission with VCSQI and VHAC. So very humbled. Again, a little bit of trepidation following in the footsteps of some of our past leaders that have built this phenomenal organization, but just excited to get started. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien, and looking forward to great things to come. We also wanted to just briefly talk about some of our VCSQI strategic goals and our planning scorecard for 2026. These are overall themes of continuing the VCSQI's tradition of protocol implementation, measuring outcomes. We want to keep increasing member engagement. We have a nice turnout this evening, so we're enthused that we're gathering that level of participation. We also, Sherri and I, want to continue meeting with folks one-on-one. We want to be at your quality meetings. We want to engage with you all in whatever venue is best for, again, you all to help your own missions at your own local institutions. So let us know how we can provide data, how we can present, how we can be there for you all. That ties into updates to our reporting analytic engine. Some of you all know that we are upgrading our reporting platform and system going forward. We're going to have a very exciting announcement in the coming months about that, but reach out to us if you'd like a sneak peek under the hood as well. And that will continue to demonstrate the value of VCSQI through our data research and this group collaboration where we all really help each other to raise the tide. So these are the 2026 strategic focus areas. Each one of these corresponds to one of the 4 domains I just went over. I'm going to keep moving here because I know we have a number of slides to get through. So I'll just say that this is a publicly available document for all VCSQI members. In terms of our scorecard, we want to be transparent about our VCSQI mission. We want to make sure that your voices are heard. So if you'd like to provide your input about this, if you'd like to meet with us, provide suggestions, feedback, we are all ears. We really need your input as far as understanding our direction of the organization to make sure that it aligns with yours. And with that, we are going to move into the awards and recognition portion of our evening. So Sherri, I'm going to let you do some of the announcing, and I'm going to be handing out some goodies here.
Hello, everyone. The spring meeting is absolutely my favorite meeting because this is why the Collaborator of the Year Awards. So first of all, thank you all for feeding into the vision and mission of VCSQI. Without you, we would not be as successful as we are. So give yourself a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so we asked at the end of the year, we always ask if you can nominate any of your colleagues that went above and beyond. It just represents the collaboration and the key and the value of VCSQI. And so I just always love just celebrating the nominees. And so without further ado, let me announce the nominees. First one is Megan Vaughn. Okay, well, we know Megan was Collaborator of the Year last year, but she continues to raise that bar. She was recognized by Tiana. She was recognized because of her leadership and her statewide collaboration, serving as a key connector and a trusted voice for VCSQI. Thank you, Megan. And we have a surprise for you, Megan. You know we love goodies. So as a representation of VCSQI and VHAC, we have made some amazing swag. All right. Now you have to take a picture of it and send it to us. Okay, and our next nominee is dun, dun, dun. My slides are out of order. Oh, I went back one. Well, let's do this one, and I'll go back. Allie Harnan. Allie, where are you? Okay. Allie is recognized for her impactful collaboration and process improvement work that is influencing system-wide clinical practices and outcomes. Allie, where are you? We have goodies for you. Yay! And now going backwards because I skipped, my finger got a little happy. Nancy Ferber. We see this name almost every year. Nancy, you are just so amazing. And you were nominated because you are honored for your ability to translate data into actionable insight that strengthens quality and teamwork within cardiology care. Where are you, Nancy? Nancy! I don't think I've ever seen your face. Thank you so much. Okay, and next we have Eve Dallas. I think we all know Eve. Eve is online. Yeah, she is joining us online, and she is being honored for her leadership in aligning and advancing perfusion practices across Virginia to improve patient outcomes through VCSQI, and then some. Eve also has helped to foster a collaboration with UVA to get us interns, and I would like to have Manny stand. Manny is one of our interns we have now, helping us just to streamline and improve care. Thank you so much. This is a result of Eve, so thank you, Eve. And we have goodies for you. We'll send it by Nancy. Next we have, Melanie. Melanie Johnson is being recognized for her exceptional leadership in uniting stakeholders across the Western region and driving meaningful collaboration through VHAC. Thank you so much, Melanie. And last but not least, this is a man without any words. I don't even need to say anything. Dr. Peter O'Brien is being honored for his visionary leadership in founding and evolving VHAC into a powerful collaborative force, improving healthcare across Virginia. Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Do you like the swag? Yep. You got to open it up.
Well, we're gonna ask all of our nominees to get a group photo later with their new shirts. If you got the wrong size, you can trade.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. And now, without further ado, this is my favorite part, and I hope the music is working. The Collaborator of the Year of 2025 is, and the music is not working. Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. Everyone online, you're missing it in person. Nancy Verber. You are amazing, Nancy. Thank you so much. Yes, and you're about to celebrate a retirement soon. Yes, yes. So thank you for all you do. She is someone you can call with any questions and she'll answer it for you. If she don't have the answer, she'll find someone who knows the answer. Thank you so much for all you do. Good. Okay. Now what did I do? Now let me get to my next slide. But wait a minute, we are not done. We've kind of had a conversation with our board. Typically, our board members have been excluded from being a recipient of the Collaborator of the Year. But we see that our board members do a lot outside of the board that has impacted what we do within VCSQI and VHAC. And so we wanted to take a moment to recognize and officially give them an award. And I will tell you, well, let me tell you who these are first. I don't want to sneak. First, we have Dr. Peter O'Brien. Yes, check out that swag, everyone. Check out that swag. Yes, Dr. O'Brien, thank you for all you do. We will mail you your award, but you have one similar to Nancy. Thank you, thank you. Yes. Actually, do we want to have Nancy say any words? Do you want to say anything?
We're gonna put you on the spot, Nancy. It comes with the trophy.
I just thank you and everybody in this whole room so wonderful, and all the other nominees did a lot more than me, so I did not expect it, but thank you. I love y'all.
Thank you.
And we'll just say Nancy has been a powerhouse behind the VHAC and VCSQI database for really since we started this in 2017, getting cardiology, cath-PCI data from our member institutions. And you're always there to help other institutions behind the scenes. And, you know, just I feel like the data managers are silent heroes. So we really appreciate all your support, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. Dr. O'Brien, do you want to give an acceptance speech for this part? You know.
Yeah, just to say thank you to all the nominees and so many people in this room, and Nancy especially. I don't think people realize half of what they do behind the scenes constantly, and they just show up time and time again. But this is also a good chance to put these two on the spot because Eddie and Sherri are among the most driven, passionate, effective people that I've worked with, and I've been in quality for 25 years. So give them a big round of applause.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. We'll pay you later. But as you all know, Dr. O'Brien, you have done a lot. You do a lot with the STEMI care, with VHAC, just as amazing powerhouse, just uniting everyone across the state regionally and incorporating EMS. So if you all are here and not a part of VHAC, please see me so I can get you on that mailing list. Thank you very much. But we are not done. Next, Eve Dallas. Uh-oh. I went too fast, sorry. Eve, yay. I know you're online. I want to try to spotlight you so everybody can see you. Would you like to say anything?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'm really honored, Sherri and Eddie and everyone. Thank you so much. I wanted to say we're looking for great things from Manny. I'm sorry that I missed him being there. And I wanted to congratulate Brandy Brummer. Maybe she's still in the audience there for hosting and co-championing our new ECMO work group, which we're looking forward to some great things from Brandy. So I just want to say congratulations to her as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Eve is always too humble as well. I mean, she's another powerhouse kind of behind the scenes, helping to get our VCSQI and now across state lines, Maryland and North Carolina perfusion group off the ground. She serves on our board of directors. She's been instrumental in our partnership with the MPH school and our internship program, and now in its second year. She's helping with ECMO and Eve, is there something you don't do for VCSQI? I can't list it.
Oh, she's frozen. It looks like she's sleeping. There she Okay, you're
Well,
back
from
on.
Austin, Texas, I can say, Eddie, I don't wear I don't wear the data wizard hat. How about that?
But you know enough to be dangerous still. You know enough to be dangerous. Well, thank you again, Eve. Congratulations to all of our Collaborator of the Year nominees and awardees.
Yes, yes, yes. And we know there's so many more out there. So thank you all again for all that you do. If you do not have a meeting with Eddie and I on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, just to talk about your organization, what your priorities are, what your goals are, please call upon us. Expand, or we strive to believe that we serve as an extended member of your team. So please utilize us. We're here for you. Eddie does the math, the wizard. I can't do that stuff, but I can help with the other stuff. But we are here. So just please feel free to call upon us. And without further ado, that concludes the collaborators of the year. Please expect another survey coming out maybe November, December to nominate other individuals. And we'll do this again. This is why the spring meeting is so fun. So thank you for all you do.
So it begins now. Everybody start collaborating.
Yeah.
So we are going to jump into a data review here of our latest VCSQI quality and outcomes measures. Quick overview of our current data repository. It encompasses literally hundreds of thousands of patients at this point. These are the 4 clinical registries we're working with. We continue to link data with financial repository from Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. That's only going to improve with some of the analytic infrastructure updates that we're applying right now as well. Okay, we can't see the title because of the Zoom. I'm going to minimize this window. This is our procedure volume by quarter across the 4 main registries. You see that quarter by quarter, they're pretty flat, but it gives you some idea of the relative comparison between each of the registries. Of course, cath PCI is our largest. This is just the PCI cases, but we include diagnostic caths, it's even bigger. We have our STEMI database is the second largest here. Typically, we only look at the STEMI, kind of our acute STEMI patients, but this is quite a big database as well. So there's a lot of potential for impact. And you can see that's just increasing as we're getting new members online, and more to come there from our VHAC data. STS is the next one, over 1,500 cardiac surgery operations per quarter. And another one that, grew year over year and now looks pretty flat, but is still, amazingly impressive compared with 10, 15 years ago is our TVT, the transcatheter population. This is all transcatheter valves we're looking at. So over 700 a quarter on average nowadays. These are the measure specs. Most of you probably know our quarterly reports. So this is modeled after those, where we're comparing a rolling 4-quarter data set against one another. So prior 4 quarters against most recent 4 quarters, standard definitions sorted by performance within each volume group. And if you see a little plus sign or asterisk, that means you are a statistical outlier. So first up is cath PCI. This is our radial access site proportions by center. I see the gold and blue, those are the 2 4-quarter periods. We're benchmarked against VCSQI in green, which is above that benchmark, at least the most recent benchmark we have of ACC. I see about 70% of PCI procedures are done radially across our member centers, but there is still a wide amount of variation between center, and a lot of impact that can have when we see more cases done via that radial approach. Feel free, again, stop me if you guys have any comments or questions. Here is our bleeding observed to expected. So this is risk adjusted for patient acuity. We're looking at just under a 1.0 rate here for our VCSQI centers. That means we're seeing less cases of observed bleeding than the predicted risk algorithm says we, quote unquote, should have based on those risk factors. But there's still about a little bit over a 2% bleeding rate across our member centers. That's similar to ACC. And as usual, there's decent amount of variation by program, but not too many outliers here. A couple centers have achieved a plus sign, though. That is relatively rare for the OE metrics. So I think we should probably reach out to them and see what they're doing. pretty similar story for acute kidney injury. This is stage 1 AKI, so pretty stringent criteria. Means we have a higher observed rate, 8 or 9% here. Just so happens that our VCSQI and ACC benchmarks are exactly at a 1.0, so exactly as where the risk algorithm would predict. VCSQI has done a lot of work on AKI though, so if this is something you all are working on, struggling with, have seen a spike in lately, we have a set of recommendations. It covers from pre-cath all the way to if the patient goes to surgery, it covers the entire range of pre and post care, cath and surgery. So it's about a, 8 or 12 page document, 10 or 12 page document, Sherri. It's quite comprehensive. We'd love to share that with you if AKI is one of your foci. I'll pause. I see some folks are still in at some of the numbers here. And by the way, I should have mentioned these are all de-identified. If you need your code, we're happy to provide those as well. Another area we've looked at recently in VCSQI is case time. So this is our average PCI procedure time in minutes. We're looking at a little over an hour across all VCSQI centers. This graph has been adjusted to only look at our low risk population, so less than a 1% predicted risk of mortality. It's a relatively smooth out set of data that I think somebody at one of our recent meetings suggested, so we tried to normalize this. Still a lot of variation though, even in this low risk group. So another area for potential standardization, sharing of checklists and protocols is always something we love to facilitate in VCSQI. And I think this is our last cath PCI slide, same day discharge. I just noted there's a ton of variation here. Some programs are at 90, nearly 100%. Others are down, 20, 30%. So there's just a ton of range of performance here. Our overall average is above 60%. So for that elective population, most are going home the same day. But as Dr. Lancey intonated, when we start to see more patients having procedures done at ambulatory centers, how can we at the hospitals, really provide a comparable service, get patients home quickly and safely? And here's one way that it looks like a lot of hospitals are already doing so. So we want to keep measuring and tracking this and hope we see an upward trend here. We're going to move on to just a couple graphs from our STEMI database. This is one that we're actively working to improve. Most folks are familiar with door to balloon time. The STEMI database kicks that up to the next level where we're looking at first medical contact to device time. This is for our immediate STEMI patients, about 2,000 of them over the last couple of years. VCSQI benchmark is quite high at about 86%, depending on the time frame, the subpopulation we look at. There are a couple of, there's a FMC device with exclusions and without exclusions. This is the one with a couple of the patient delay exclusions. We've applied, but regardless, we're in that 85, 86% neighborhood, it looks like, but still some potential to improve over here. And Dr. O'Brien can talk about the how time is muscle and just the immediacy of why this is such an important metric for us to keep looking at.
Yeah, this has been a work in progress, our STEMI registry. Some of you may remember the Action Registry, which basically kind of broke up. I think the AHA withdrew from that in 2017. And VCSQI really came to the rescue, helped us, really Eddie and Sherri helped us kind of bring that data from chest pain MI and if you get with the guideline centers. And it continues to grow. I don't want to steal your thunder, but he's going to show some newer slides. Well, I will steal it, I guess. One of them is going to be, so to back up for a second, in 2026, we're 20 years after the American College of Cardiology's Door to Balloon project. So although Door to Balloon is important, it's really FMC to balloon, first medical contact to balloon. When the, paramedic walks in grandma's living room and lays hands on the patient, that's when the clock starts. And we know that's part of the ischemic continuum, and that's important. So we really look at FMC to device time of less than 90, but also as fast as reasonably possible. And that's where we get to that metric you're going to see is the median. As part of that, one of our work groups in VHAC is looking at direct-to-cath lab. Megan's here. She's been a big leader in that. And it's really looking at streamlining that process. We are very, very big advocates for bypassing the emergency department in appropriate patients. That in some centers is a little controversial, but there is, without getting too deep in the weeds, there have been some great studies done from NCDR data showing that A, it's safe, and B, it leads to better outcomes. So we're gonna look at the direct-to-cath lab percentages across the state. So this database continues to grow. We're continuing to add to it to respond to the curiosity and the needs of our members. As Eddie's going through this, if you can think of other ideas, other things you'd like to see us gather data on, then, please speak up.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. And actually, so you didn't preempt me because we're actually going to show a slightly different set of metrics here. So the median FMC to device, I'll just speak to, we don't have data for this evening, is about 76 minutes. But of course, we'll see variation by program there as well. That has come down from about 80 or so minutes over the years here. So we are seeing a year-over-year decline, but still something that we're trying to normalize with, again, the great work of those VHAC work groups and subgroups. I did want to highlight a couple other areas that are available within chest pain MI. There's a metric called defect-free care we've been asked about. So this is a first glance at the rolling 8-quarter performance here of the defect-free care across our member centers. See, the VCSQI benchmark is about 80%, but and most of the members are surpassing that, but there are a couple programs that look like we can work with to address a few of these domains that chest pain MI is calling a defect in care a little harshly, but we will continue to measure this one. Another one is the performance composite. There were over 87,000 components that went into this calculation. We're seeing about a 96% adherence to that metric. So we're ticking a lot of boxes here. Obviously, there's multiple domains for each patient that go in. But it just goes to show how complex this database is, and we're really just barely peeling back the first layer of the onion. So next up will be direct to cath lab, looking at patients who are evaluated in the cath lab as their first location, or they're in the ED for less than 5 minutes, which was the area that our committee determined was kind of the minimum threshold for still being a direct to cath type of emergent case. And more to come from VHAC STEMI, but we wanted to give a teaser of a couple other domains here too. So let us know your ideas and how we can keep using this data to improve. Next up is TVT. We're kind of going around the circle. We have 10 centers doing TVT at this point, hopefully adding the last couple centers where there are 13 programs in Virginia currently doing TAVR. So the last couple ones are still yet to join us. It's a teaser for the membership kick that we always put out there as well. Here is new permanent pacemaker by hospital. So 8% versus 6% nationally. Looks like a couple centers we can start working on this. This is not adjusted for patient acuity, but it is a standard TAVR population. Similar story with vascular complications, where a couple sites are, in this 10, 20% ballpark. It feels like an area that we can really start working on, where the national average is under 5. So we're going to be reaching out to some of the sites that we've identified and learn from the centers that are on the left-hand side of these charts. The other friend we just spoke to was AKI. So interestingly, AKI in the TAVR population now exceeds that of what we saw in CAP-PCI. So nearly 10% across VCSQI centers, we're seeing those blue bars increasing across most sites. I think we're going to have to reconvene our AKI work group at some point and understand how we can bridge that gap between the current set of recommendations and how it might specifically apply to the transcatheter patients. Another just interesting one, again, there's so much data in these repositories, it's so valuable. Patients are getting almost entirely different types of devices depending on where they're treated. This just to me, again, screams like an opportunity for standardization, or at the very least understanding what these data mean. You know, you get a navigator versus a sapien versus an evolute valve. What does that mean outcomes wise, down the road wise? We also have the follow-up data in TBT, so we can start tracking some of these outcomes, not just in the hospital, but 30 days, 6 months down the road. It's quite a robust data set here. Length of stay as well. We're seeing a good amount of variation. I wanted to fast forward this slide here. Take a look at this as far as average of about 3 days, a little over 3 days total, 1 day pre, 2 days post. But good amount of variation between center, 1.5 to 4 is the range. And we were asked recently about same-day discharge for TAVR patients. So another opportunity. A couple of our centers seem like they're doing it, you know, in the rare occasion, but we want to be on the cutting edge here. So how can we continue to identify trends like this before they get big, and understand when is it safe to discharge a patient undergoing TAVR on the same day? Okay, and our old friend, the adult cardiac surgery database, which we have tracked for 20 plus years now in VCSQI. This is one of our first quality initiatives, was intra or post-op blood use. I wanted to just keep looking at this. Our VCSQI benchmark continues to outpace that of STS. We're at 35% versus 41. This is for any component intra or post-op. So especially at these centers here that have plus signs on them, they continue to statistically outperform not just the STS, but the VCSQI average. So those blood conservation efforts have continued 10, 15, 20 years down the line here for our centers, and we've saved literally thousands of transfusions based on that. Contrasting that with a newer chart, multiple arterial graphs. This is looking at either bilateral IMA usage, or usually it's an IMA plus a radial artery. We're seeing this tick up, but we're still only at about 20% across our VCSQI centers. Of course, there's been studies on long-term graft patency of the multiple arterial patients where it's safe for them to do that procedure. So we are seeing a couple centers really outpace our group and national means here. We want to understand how to encourage this at more centers. So we'll be reaching out to a couple of these programs, understanding how they are achieving 50, 60% MAG usage. Look at a couple of our guys over here that are. Okay, failure to rescue. This is a metric that we've been reporting on in VCSQI for a number of years. This means a patient undergoes a major morbidity, so one of the 4 major complications: renal failure, prolonged vent, stroke, reoperation. Then they go on to incur inoperative mortality within 30 days. This first denominator here is looking at that definition of failure to rescue among all patients, where we're seeing about a 1% failure to rescue rate. We've presented this in VCSQI for a number of years. STS has shown a number of studies about failure to rescue. Most recently, though, it was suggested by one of our data managers and one of our fellows, where what if we change the denominator here to not just look at all patients, but specifically that subset of patients incurring major morbidity. So if you had one of those 4 major events, how likely is it that you go on to be in operative mortality in our database? And we went from 1% to 13% of the time. These potentially represent the real opportunities for rescue. So we're looking at just the patients with major events. How often did they have mortality? Suddenly, there's a lot more variation and a lot more potential for standardization and rescue of this severely ill population. So I wanted to put this up here just for a minute, see if there's any thoughts, questions about our failure to rescue data. Megan.
We talked about this in our surge ops meeting this morning in one of our hospitals, and the definition at the bottom has the same inclusion criteria. Can you delineate that a little bit more between the previous slide and this slide?
So the definition at the bottom is just for the numerator. What's not delineated here on the bottom is what the denominator. So what's the pie chart? You know, what's the overall pie we're looking at here? It's the same, you know, cherry on the pie, but in the first graph, it's a much bigger population. We're looking at everyone. The second one, it's just the smaller slice of those patients with major events. Yeah, thanks for the question, Megan. Other thoughts on this chart here? Slide back up front. And we'll be sure to send these out as well as I know it takes a little bit of time sometimes to digest these. But just a couple more. 30-day readmission is another domain that we have tracked for literally 10 plus years. Came up with 2 different work groups to start addressing best practices. Robin has been involved in this work with us for many years. Presented probably, what, 2 or 3 times to our group about the great work you guys are doing at UVA. Still, we continue to see between a 9 and 10% readmission rate every year. Dr. Lancey will be the first to say that, you know, we're never going to get that rate to 0. There's always going to be some patients. There's, you know, some patients need readmissions. Some are way out in the countryside and they're just going to come back no matter what. But regardless, we just keep seeing this, you know, 9-10% incidence of readmission without fail just about every year. Sometimes it's even higher than that. So we want to keep tracking this. Without tracking it, we're never going to be able to truly slay that dragon. So there is a risk calculator available online as far as our risk of readmission as well. So if you want that link, that was developed by our readmission work group a couple of years ago too. And last but not least, average OR time. This is commensurate. We looked at procedure time for PCI earlier. In the operating room for CABG, we're looking at over 5 times as long, 5 hours, 24 minutes. We've broken that down into surgical OR time and non-surgical OR time, which Dr. Cotter and colleagues published on within the last year or so. They saw correlations between longer OR times, both in under the knife, basically, and that non-surgical time, so pre and post skin incision. Correlations between higher times and worse outcomes and higher costs. So another domain we want to keep tracking here and understand how to start moving to the left, saving time in the OR, but also resources and improving quality downstream. And that is our quick crash course in our data. Just want to thank everybody for the work you do as far as capturing this data, helping us understand, glean meaning from it. And we literally couldn't do this without you. So appreciate you all and open to your comments and questions. Take a breath here too. All right. And hearing none, again, we're going to be sure to circulate all the data. Sherri can tell you where it is on the website. It's in the members portal, and we can download all of that. It's available to all of our participating centers. So keep letting us know what data is valuable to you all. We will make sure we get it to you. And so that brings us to our keynote of the evening. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Brody Wayman from Bon Secours. Dr. Wayman was born and raised here in Virginia in Ashland. He attended medical school at VCU and did his integrated cardiothoracic surgery residency at U of M. We won't hold that against him. He earned his master's in clinical research there. He's been with Bon Secours Richmond since 2018 now and serves as the Associate Medical Director of Bon Secours Mercy Heart and Vascular Service Line. He has authored and co-authored over 50 peer-reviewed publications, numerous book chapters, and also remains active in clinical research. We're going to hear from Dr. Wayman tonight about the universal bed model at Bon Secours, how it is moving the needle for their patient population. It also says here that Dr. Wayman has 3 children, 2 dogs. Many days he finds his work at home even more hectic than his work in the hospital. So Dr. Wayman, please illuminate us, universal bed model, and on your work at home too. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight.
All right. Thank you very much for the introduction, Eddie, and thank you for having me to speak today. I did want to echo what some other people said earlier and just take a minute to thank everyone who's here. I'm so grateful for the VCSQI. When I was in training in Maryland, they had just launched a similar initiative based on the VCSQI. I was so glad to have it when I came out of training. A lot of the work I'm going to talk about today was really fueled by the quarterly data reports that came out from the VCSQI. We eagerly anticipate those coming out, and we want to see how we're improving compared to where we were last time and compared to ourselves to other programs in the state. So I'm really, really appreciative. The topic I'm going to talk about today is something that's been near and dear to me. For anyone who's worked with me for the last 7 or 8 years has heard me talk about wanting to do it and then working on getting it done, and then now presenting our early results and talking about how it's going. And that would be the universal bed model for post-op cardiac surgery. So for those of you who are not familiar with cardiac, many of you are, but those of you who aren't, this is the way that it's done. Patient comes out of the OR, goes to an ICU, they recover from their surgery, they're extubated, they become medically stable, and then they transfer out to another room and another location in the hospital, which we term the step-down floor. These are actual pictures from our hospital at Memorial Regional. And this is the way it's done almost everywhere in the country with cardiac surgery. When I came out of residency, I trained in a place that had one of the highest acuity scores in the country and had every possible resource you could have. In-house residents, myself in-house when I was on call, a full 24-hour ICU team, ICU NPs, in-house perfusionists, and you name it. It was vastly different when I got to Memorial Regional Medical Center in Mechanicsville in 2018, and literally my first day, I was the only surgeon there. It was a surgeon had left, and it was being propped up for coverage by locums, and it was a great challenge, but also a great opportunity. And my first day, one of the senior partners said, "This is your baby." I said, "Okay, here we go." But I took that to heart, and I wanted to use the training I had acquired in residency, and I wanted to take on the highest risk cases and the most acuity cases. I wanted to do ECMO and Impella and reoperations, but I also wanted to do it safely. And myself and our team, we wanted to strive for excellence. We wanted to have the best outcomes in the state. We wanted to have the best outcomes in the region. And so what I started to realize is that in a place that's not a busy academic medical center, patients are very vulnerable once they get to that part on the step-down floor without in-house residents or in-house intensivists or in-house cardiac anesthesia. In addition, even if you get to that point, it's hard to even get to that point because there's a lot of competition for beds from namely the emergency room. There's a lot of pressure to decongest the ER, as you all are familiar with. Also other parts of the hospital that need telemetry beds. Patients are on step down that aren't telemetry, they need those beds. So I found myself with patients in the ICU that just weren't getting out. They'd stay there for days. Sometimes they'd be discharged. Even when I tried to call a nursing supervisor and the day before to try to plan the bed, I got yelled at for that. You're not supposed to do that. And so there's a lot of barriers just in getting out of the unit. And then there's even once they get in the unit, in the step down floor, patients are at risk for complications, things that get missed, and then things that are no one's fault, they just happen. And anyone who's worked in heart surgery knows that these things happen. One of my attendings in residency used to call them the snake in the grass. And there's things that happen to patients when they're out there. So I started to ask, what are the inherent problems with this? And is there a better way that we can take care of patients afterwards? And although it was challenging being in a small hospital and being the only surgeon, there were advantages to that because it's a much more malleable, moldable place to work, environment, I guess. A busy academic medical center has a lot of inertia, a lot of layers of bureaucracy. This is the way we've done it for 30 years. No, it's not going to change. But a smaller hospital with a great team and you're the only surgeon, you can actually make a change. This was a paper that I had read in residency, and my attendings in residency all loved it and wished that they could do it at their hospital. I show the paper here because the lead author in the presentation at AHS was a cardiac surgeon named Damien Lepar. And anyone who's been at UVA knows Damien. He was a very prolific resident. I bragged about 50 plus papers. He had like 1,000,000 plus, like 100 plus. He was a very prolific resident. And this, even though he's kind of buried as a mid author, he was the lead author on a presentation at our biggest conference talking about the outcomes. This is not at UVA, even though he was a UVA resident. This is at Suburban Hospital in Bethesda. And there's only literally a handful of papers that have been written in cardiac surgery using this model of care. And at this time, Suburban Hospital was part of the NIH health system. Now it's part of Johns Hopkins. So Keith Hovarth was very involved, very busy researcher, and he studied all the outcomes from this Suburban Hospital. So they had figured out how to incorporate a universal bed model whereby patients stay in the room from the time they come out of the OR until the time they go home. The outcomes were impressive. Reduction in ICU and hospital length of stay, decreased ventilation times, reduced infectious complications. And the great thing about this paper was that they looked at the financial benefit. And depending on the patient, it was between $6,000 and almost $10,000. And a lot of that was attributed to the reduced length of stay and the reduced complications. And if you're familiar with the state of Maryland, they track very closely their financial data. So that was a great aspect of the paper. And so that's kind of the background about how we came to this. And I'd like to spend some time in the talk today talking about in three parts. One is why we did this, and give some background on the universal bed model in general. Because it's not a common thing that's done, I'd like to spend some time sharing parts of the literature that were actually pretty surprising to me in terms of the benefits. Then I'd like to spend a little bit of time on how we did it, because there were a few things that I think really helped, really worked to get this across the finish line. And then lastly, I'd like to share what we found after 2 years of data. And I'll talk more about this, but I have to thank Eddie very much and his team because they did the statistical analysis for us. So the universal bed concept, when we say universal bed, what do we mean? So it essentially means in the cardiac surgery world, the patient stays in the room from the time they get out of the OR until they go home. They still can become step down. It just means that when you put the order in for step down, they're immediately step down. They don't have to wait until they get out of the unit. The fancy term for this in the nursing literature is the acuity adaptable unit, because the acuity can change based on the patient. And I like this quote, is that the required level of care is brought to the patient. So it changes based on the patient's needs. Couple important benefits. I already mentioned length of stay. That's the most consistent thing across different specialties. We're talking about cardiac surgery, but this has been done in thoracic surgery, renal transplant, pediatric cardiac surgery, and one of the first specialties to use a model like this was L&D. And across the board, reduced length of stay. A lot of other quality metrics, quality improvements, reduction in complications of all types, including wound infections. But really the most important thing that we found, and that I'd hoped we would find too when we implemented this, was an improvement in failure to rescue. So there's an improved response to unexpected complications. And because the ICU bed can convert immediately into, a step-down bed can convert immediately back to an ICU bed, you immediately have a patient who can receive the attention that they require. You also have increased staff vigilance. So even if you have an inexperienced nurse, maybe with a step-down patient in the ICU, on the step-down portion of that room, there might be a very experienced nurse 1 or 2 beds down who is kind of watching that step-down patient and can respond immediately. And then you can also downgrade right back to ICU status, back to step-down status once you rescue the patient. It also allows for one patient-focused team throughout the patient's hospital stay and just in general. A lot of the units work in silos, so the step-down floor will have its own nursing leader, their own goals, their things that they track, and their ups and downs, staffing issues, and the ICU will have their own. But in this model, everyone's working on the same page, and there's a lot of efficiency there. Patient safety is a huge thing. It's pretty well known that handoffs in general introduce the opportunity for error in either the medication or the dosing. And in this model, you essentially eliminate handoffs except for the day shift to night shift nurse. And we'll talk a little bit, I'll mention that a little more later, but eliminating handoffs has been shown to reduce about 70% of the medication errors. Another underestimated aspect of the patient's recovery is the need for peace and calm, especially at nighttime. And noise is one of the biggest stressors, especially when they're post-op day 3, 4, or 5. And our telemetry floor, especially before we transitioned, was very loud at night. If you think about an ICU room, those doors are sliding glass doors, and once you close those and close the curtain, it's soundproof in there, and they can just turn the lights off and patients can rest. These doors, although they're solid doors, they're very loud, and you all know the hospital's shut down at night. It's loud. The nurses are sometimes just talking in the little checkpoints there, and some of the nicest patients in the world, they're like, "Doc, I just couldn't sleep at all last night." And we saw that time and again. So when I found this in the literature, I was like, oh, that tracks. That makes sense. Cost I mentioned. This is the only paper that I saw that had specific numbers for cardiac surgery, but it makes sense that reducing length of stay, reducing complications should reduce the amount of money that's spent per patient. Patient satisfaction is huge. In each of the papers that I found across different specialties in our unit, since we've opened the unit, we've had the highest patient satisfaction scores across all different kinds of ICUs at the hospitals in our market. One thing that contributes to this is the potential to have the same nurse for either most or all of your stay. When we went to visit Suburban Hospital, they would deliberately assign a nurse to come in the next day knowing they're going to recover an AVR and they're going to have 4 days. They have 4 days in a row they work. All 4 days are with that same patient. Now, they have other patients too, but they're with that patient the entire time. So the patients get to know the nurses really well. They come back at their post-op asking to go see, Frank again or whoever was their nurse. And they come back to the unit and they get to know these people well. And the nurses actually get to know the families really well. So it's a good two-way rapport. Nursing satisfaction and retention. So when Northwestern, they opened a pediatric cardiac universal bed. And within a year after opening it, they looked back and they had the highest employee satisfaction across all their units. And the 1 year retention was 90%, 3 year was 94%. And in today's world where nurses are constantly pulled to go the traveling route, retentions and satisfaction are a really important piece, especially in cardiac surgery. We really depend on those nurses. So anything we can do to optimize their satisfaction and nursing retention is key. I think one thing that helps with this is that a lot of nurses can experience burnout because you're getting sick patient after sick patient. You're never actually seeing them get better. But in this model, you can still be an ICU nurse, but you also see the patients you recovered improve and get better and leave the hospital. And I think there's something to that. Other benefits, touched on this a little before, but was efficiency. So we have a centralized place for rounds. So it's one unit. Our team, whether it's the surgeons, the NPs, the intensivists, our pharmacists, we all round together. And we start at the beginning and we go to the end. And the intensivist leaves after the ICU patients are done, but it's all done in one swoop. It's very efficient. And then the other efficiency I mentioned earlier was that there's a lot more patient care hours spent by the nurse when you take away the transfers. The other thing that we did that we found very helpful is dedicating the physical therapists and the occupational therapists and the case managers to those units. So before, you'd have a case manager assigned to the ICU, then you have a whole separate case manager assigned to the floor. And when the patient transfers out, sometimes it's like starting over again, especially for the more complicated patients. Same with the physical therapist. They get to know these patients well. They see how they're improving. When you move them to another floor and you start over again with a new physical therapist, sometimes they don't know the patient or the progress they had made. So it just makes it really easy that these ancillary services are all on the same unit, and it's very coherent. This isn't the reason we make clinical decisions, but it's reality, and this unit, the unit's marketable. And so Suburban Hospital figured out how to capitalize on this, and this is in their brochure. This is a judge from Montgomery County. In the first line, they say, we have a universal bed model, and we're one of the few in the country that has it. And there's a nice big picture from there. So it is a unique, it can be a differentiator if you implement it. I mentioned before, this was something I didn't really appreciate on the surgeon side, but eliminating transfers is a big piece. If you think about the time that each nurse every day spends giving report to the step-down nurse, and then that step-down nurse giving report to the nighttime step-down nurse, that's a lot. And then you replicate that across 2 or 3 patients that may all be going out of the unit in a day. That's a lot of time. And that is gone with essentially gone with the universal bed unit. And then you also you eliminate the competition with the ER or other beds around the hospital that need telemetry. That daily struggle about how we're going to get a patient out so we can make rooms for our next case, that's gone because you're in a confined unit. There's one other thing that I also didn't appreciate on the surgeon side is that the transfer itself is actually stressful to patients. They might not volunteer it, but according to this paper that did a survey, 20% of people felt highly distressed at the idea of being transferred out of the ICU nest and out to a whole nother part of the hospital. That's a distressing feeling that people report. It's not all perfect. There's a lot of challenges and barriers. It's well described. You need to have buy-in from the physician leaderships as well as the nursing leadership. But not only buy-in from both of those areas, but also collaboration between the two. There's always going to be resistance to a big change like this, whether it's from the nurses or nursing leaders. But the biggest challenge, honestly, is the staffing. And those of you with a nursing background can just think about the conundrum that this can cause, because you have to figure out, are you going to have all ICU nurses that learn step-down care? What about the step-down nurses who've been doing this for decades and are really good at it? Are you going to teach them how to become ICU nurses? That's going to take a long time. What's the answer? And if you try to have them separate, you have some ICU and some step-down. Well, how do you plan the nursing ratios for that? What if 2 people go home and then 1 person becomes it gets very complicated very fast. So that is a real challenge to figure out when you're trying to launch a universal bed model like this. And I touched on this a little bit, but determining the nursing ratios per shift and then the flexibility of nursing staff within the shift. So if some nurses can't take care of step-down patients or don't do that, or some nurses don't take care of ICU patients, if within a shift the patient needs to change status, it can get very challenging. And this is just a paper that went through the 3 different options. You could give a whole talk just on this and how to solve this problem. But I just wanted to mention that this is one of the bigger challenges that we faced in our hospital. This paper just brought a number of academic and non-academic centers together, and they all compared notes and said, what are the things that make a successful universal bed unit? And one is intuitive, just a homogeneous patient population. So all the patients in the unit have are under the same sort of intervention, whether it's cardiac surgery, thoracic, or L&D. And they have, the thing that unites them is that they have predictable care pathways. Like, as long as things go okay, patient's going to come out of the OR, get recovered, go to the step down, home on day 4. And those are the things that make nursing, staffing, and other planning possible. You have to have really good coherence between the nursing, leadership, the administration, everyone has to be bought in on it. And one thing that was interesting in the paper, that all of these units had their own autonomous nursing council that helped solve these problems for themselves and figure out the best way to do it for themselves. At Memorial in general, specifically, at Memorial and specifically, we saw a number of areas for opportunity when we were considering launching this. And I had mentioned some of the struggles about getting patients out of our unit. And so we look back, this was when Tracy was here, Tracy Sheehan, who some of you may know, and we looked back at our overall length of stay, which we knew we could do better, an average of 7 days, an average of 8 days. But our ICU length of stay was quite long, and 98 hours, 73 hours. That's the time that they're physically in the ICU. So even if you put the step-down order in, the way the STS tracks it, it still counts as ICU time until they're out of the room and in a step-down room. So the only way to get the real answer is to have someone go back in every chart and look at, say, well, what time did we actually put the order in to transfer them versus when they went out? And Tracy Sheehan did that. And she's not here, but she deserves credit. So at Memorial, the average was 16 hours. The average time from when they came out of the ICU, out of the OR, to when we put the transfer in was 16 hours. So 16 hours to 7, this was in 2022. That's a long time that they're in the ICU basically needlessly. They shouldn't be there, but they are. So if we had a universal bed model at that time, those patients could have immediately been put to step down. St. Mary's had an even bigger problem at that time. They had 49 hours from the time. They were putting the order in at 49 hours, and they were waiting a long time until they were ready to transfer. So a couple things we asked ourselves before we launched this did we have the consistent case volume to support this? You have to be sure that you have enough cases that are going to go through, but not too busy to take up all the rooms that are going to become your step-down rooms. So we thought through that. We had to make sure that the nursing staff, or at least a core of them, would be supportive of this change. And then how do we incorporate our floor nurses, and what does that planning look like? How do we do this? And we thought about actually launching a pilot first in our old ICU. That was something that we were going to do before we opened the new ICU, which I'll talk about in a second. So that's a lot of background, but I thought it was worth sharing because it's an unusual way of caring for these patients, and there's a lot of benefits and a lot of unique challenges. So I thought it was worth sharing. How we actually did this, though, is a different matter. There's a lot of great ideas out there, but when you try to actually do it, there's challenges, and there's wins and there's challenges. So I think it's worth just going through some of that because it's a good example in change management, I think. The first thing was that we engaged the key stakeholders really early with this idea. So what I mean by that is the chief nursing officer, who's Robin Johnson, phenomenal leader, been there a long time. I went and talked to her one-on-one, and she was completely bought in on the idea. The CEO of the hospital, who was Lee Sewell at the time, loved the idea. She was bought in, as well as our chief medical officer. So we talked about it, and in theory, they really liked the idea. Then got everyone together, got all the nurses together, got our physical therapists, all of the MPs. We had a big meeting, and I presented essentially what I just showed, but much more detail, more background. Got everyone on the same page about why we should do this, why we should specifically at Memorial, try to build trust in the process. And from that, got a consensus to make a commitment to do this, to actually try to implement the universal bed system. So that was the background that led us to sort of get to, in theory, yes. But I think the most important thing that we did was we went together, the team went together to Suburban Hospital. So our CEO took the day off. Our CMO, our chief nursing officer, our lead ICU nurse, our ICU nursing director, our lead nurse practitioner, Meredith, and myself. We all went up the night before, and we showed up at Bethesda at rounds at 7 a.m. And I thought it was just me and Meredith were going to go, but all of them came. The CEO, everyone came. Walked through the rounds with their intensivists, both surgeons, all the nurses. We saw the whole unit in action, and then we spent several hours after rounds really getting into the details. And I was so impressed by our nursing leaders. They were asking questions way over my head. They really got into the details about how suburban hospital watch this and what they went through, how they handled the nursing ratios, how they developed a separate cost center, all these different things. And the surgeons attended, and I spoke to them about the things they liked about it. And then that fostered a continued relationship after, beyond that visit, that our lead nurses would reach back out to Bethesda and talk to them periodically. So I think that having the team actually see it in action really helped be able to initiate something like this. And then the chief nursing officer and nursing leadership took the ownership of communicating the hard decisions, because things like this, not everyone's happy. There's people who've been there a long time that don't, even though they've been taken care of, my argument is that they've already been taking care of step-down patients for a long time because the patients don't go out of the unit. They really didn't want to be committed to that as part of their job. And there were also hard conversations because there were step-down nurses who were fantastic. It was a huge part of their job satisfaction, but they didn't want to learn to become ICU nurses. And it wasn't an easy way to do it. But the nursing leadership really took ownership of managing that entire process. And what we ended up doing was having, of all the different scenarios you can do, we had every single nurse become cross-trained. So every nurse could do both. So it's not a far leap for an ICU nurse to learn how to do step-down care. But some of our step-down nurses just didn't take care of cardiac surgery patients anymore. And that was, for some of them, and for me too, I think a loss. But there were several that did come to the unit and learn how to recover post-op patients. And we had like an accelerated pathway for them, and they had a mentor, and they learned how to do it. And their preference was to take care of the step-down patients if they could be assigned, if there were enough patients to do it. But they also had the skill set to take care of ICU patients. And then I mentioned this earlier, but we assigned our physical therapists and OTs. The OTs are great about taking the patients to shower, do everything that needs to be done. It's all assigned to that one unit. So that was the first pictures I showed you. We opened the unit in July of 2023, and that's what it looks like. And you can tell that that's a different hallway than either of those pictures. We had the opportunity where that I think also helped give this some momentum, was that one of the hallways was going to be converted into a new ICU anyway, one of the step-down floors. And so I asked them to make that a dedicated cardiac ICU. And if it's going to be that, then make it universal bed. But even if they had not opened that first pod right there's 8 beds, and there was enough enthusiasm that we would have still done it just in that first pod. But it just made it easier and cleaner. Nice celebration day, to open the new unit and launch this new way of doing things. So that's how we got to where we are. And one of the things that I always vowed from the very beginning was, as soon as we do this, I really want to study it. And so I jumped on it. We had a little less than 2 years of data, but I really wanted to look back. And I'm really grateful to Eddie and his team, because they did all of the analysis that you're going to see here. So as I mentioned earlier, in the cardiac surgery population, the data are very limited. We hypothesized, even though we didn't have a lot of data, that still we would see an improvement in our length of stay. We'd have less failure to rescue because of having all the patients in an ICU setting, and that the other quality metrics we look at, we'd see an improvement. And so how do we look at this? We compared the length of stay and outcomes to isolated CABG patients across 2 eras in the same hospital. So we could have included all the heart surgery patients. And initially, Megan and I were talking about that, but it was just a cleaner, more homogeneous population to make them all CABG patients. And so we divided it into 2 time periods: the pre-universal bed model, pre-UBM, which is 2018 to 2023, post-UBM, 23 to 25. Eddie was grateful enough, I'm grateful enough for Eddie to take the time to do a propensity-based matching to basically give us 2 equivalent groups to compare. And the data source, as you know, is the STS Cardiac Surgical Database. Another important note is that it was the same surgeon in both eras that performed the vast majority of all the surgeries. There was, and by vast, I mean like upward of 85 to 90% of the surgeries each of the years. And then the other thing we did look at was we wanted to see how our center stacked up against other centers in the state using the VCSQI registry. So overall, there were 682 patients who underwent CABG from 2018 to 25, 493 in the pre-group, 189 in the post-group, and then we had 189 well-matched pairs at the pre-UBM and post-UBM. And they were comparable for each of the covariates. I'll show that here. There's no difference between any of these covariates. And I think the important one is that their bottom one, the predicted risk for morbidity and mortality was equivalent between the two groups in the two eras. So the first was the change in the total ICU hours. So pre-UBM was an average of 104 hours. Post-UBM was 59.5 hours. It's a pretty dramatic change. Again, the asterisk is that 104 hours is the time that, from the time that they were in the unit to the time they went physically out to the step-down floor. It's not the time that I put the order in. And to go back through all of those patients could be done. It just, we would need to take the time to do it. And then you could see the time that the order was put in versus the time that they actually, versus the post-UBM time point. So that's something that we want to look at in a follow-up study. One thing that we can say for sure, though, is the average post-operative length of stay went down by over a day. So this is the time from when they come out of the OR until the day that they go home or to rehab. So that's consistent with what other papers have shown. Another improvement that was pretty dramatic was the total post-operative ventilation hours. Now, over this time period, again, it was the same surgeon, and mostly the same team, honestly. So we began tracking our post-op times very closely. I mentioned the VCSQI in the beginning, and Tracy and then Megan were so instrumental in constantly giving us data that one of the first metrics we really drilled down on, regardless of the universal bed model, was our post-op vent times. Because that's a multidisciplinary effort that can be done to really drive down times. So that's part of the reason. However, when you look at other places that have implemented the universal bed model, they all have the same drop in post-op vent times. And so I don't know if it has to do with just a more concentrated approach to post-operative care or what the underlying mechanism is. But this was great to see, and it matches with prior studies. These are some of the other outcomes that we look at. Other than less blood product usage, there weren't really any other major changes in major morbidity or even mortality. Prolonged vent was 15 versus 7, which is a pretty big number, but statistically, the p-value wasn't significant. Now, if you convert those prolonged vent into hours, and you have those two large continuous variables, then you're going to get the p-value that I showed you on the prior slide. But just looking at the raw numbers, there wasn't a dramatic difference between these two matched groups. The thing that stands out, though, is the failure to rescue. So there was zero patients who we failed to rescue in the post-era. In the pre-UBM era, there was only one, and that may just be in those 189 patients because there were 4 total mortalities in that period of time. And maybe some of those patients died when they went home, and they didn't die in the hospital. And maybe there were some patients that weren't in the match group, but we definitely had more patients who underwent a cardiac arrest or had a problem on the floor. That's one of the reasons we implemented this, and that doesn't quite bear out in this analysis. Just looking at across the state, the mean ICU hours, one of the lowest in the state. If you look at 59.8, then again, post-op length of stay, competitive across the other programs at 6.56, and you can see the reduction over the 2 time periods. The failure to rescue was 0, so that was one of the best in the state over this time period. And I think it's because there were a lot of things that were caught by vigilant nursing and our nurse practitioners and myself before it became a big problem. We caught it early. And I think being in the same place all the time truly helps with that. Mortality, the ODE mortality came down a lot from the pre versus the post for our hospital, and it's respectable across the others. And you might ask, well, if you had 0 failure to rescue, Where's the mortality coming from? And those 3 patients, that were in this era that died, they died at home. They either had a fatal arrhythmia. One guy died in a car accident, day 29. It counts, it counts. And another person might have had a PE, but they're gone. They're out of the hospital. Everything was great. We looked back and they had no problems in the hospital, and something happened to them when they went home. So short of patient monitoring, constant patient monitoring, which some programs do, it's hard to get it down to 0. One thing that we are proud of is that the risk of mortality at our hospital, which is a small to intermediate size hospital, we continue to take on high-risk patients, and having patients in a safe place, a place that we feel is closely watched, that can always be converted right back to an ICU bed, gives us comfort or confidence that we can take on higher-risk patients. Also, along the time that this happened, Memorial Regional achieved the coveted 3-star recognition, and that was 2 years into opening the universal bed model. And as you all know, the star rating is now based on 3 years of cumulative performance, so it's not easy to achieve it. And I'm not saying at all that starting UBM means you're going to have a 3-star program. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that it contributes to minimizing the morbidity and the mortality as much as you can. It allows you to respond to complications immediately that can become mortalities, or can really be huge setbacks for patients. And a program that's small to moderate in size, it only takes 1 or 2 mortalities to really knock down your star rating, if that's what you're trying to achieve. And some of you are familiar with this, but this is the STS CABG star rating score. So 80% of that score is weighted on mortality, 80% of that. And so if you have even 1 or 2 mortalities, it's going to be really hard to come back from that, even if it's a high-risk patient. So it's something to really consider if you're in pursuit of recognition for your team. Some important limitations, this is promising early data, and in theory, the model is a great way to take care of patients, but there's still a lot more we need to learn. We need more patients, more follow-up time. We need to know what's the difference in ICU length of stay now versus when we used to just put the order in. Are the patients actually getting better faster? What's the nursing satisfaction in our unit? Some of the nurses love it, some do not. Some have not, not come on board in terms of loving as much as I thought that they would. I'd love to know more about that, and I think that there's a huge opportunity to do a survey and find out. Patient satisfaction, I know from the data that the hospital collects, but I'd love to see what that looks like and also do a formal study there. What are our cost savings, like the paper I showed you from Dr. Lepar? That shouldn't be too hard to obtain, and I'd love to see what the changes in the cost savings. And then looking beyond just CABG patients, looking at all our patients, I think is a very reasonable thing to do. We have all the data for them. And I think it's worth mentioning that one of our nurse practitioners, Heather Allman, launched an ERAS protocol around the same time that we started this. So there may have been, I think the ERAS protocol and the universal bed are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to limit complications. They're trying to reduce length of stay. So there could be some confounding there. It's hard to know how much. So that's pretty much it. In closing, I know I've been talking a while here. There are demonstrated benefits in cardiac surgery and other specialties. It's been shown. But the implementation of something like this, when you're already in the standard model, it takes engagement of your leaders, coordination, proper change management. In our experience, the reduced ICU and post-op length of stay times have been apparent across the 2 eras. We still have excellence in outcomes without shying away from the high-risk patients, which my overall hope for this was that a small to intermediate size program could perform at the level of a busy academic center that has all those in-house resources. And by using a unit like this, I think you actually can perform at the same level, as long as you have excellent nurses, which we do. So they're watching all the time, and we can identify problems early. It's truly hard to know how many ICU readmissions, complications, or death were prevented by the vigilant nighttime staffing. We track fail to rescue, right? Those are failures to rescue. So it's easy to count our failures. We don't know how many saves. It's countless. We talk about them at our ops meetings. We talk about them at our M&Ms. Actually, at the M&M, I will show it. We'll present a save. But that doesn't always show up in the data. And so there have been so many times that we intervene at the right time, you know, or sometimes things happen that are no one's fault, but then we can respond immediately. And I'll just close with this real life story. This was a patient, that's Rachel, one of our senior nurses, one of our best nurses, still in the unit now. And that patient had an uncomplicated first few days. Post-op day 5, she had what the hematologist called catastrophic hit. So not just hit, but hit where the platelets are in the single digits. Diffuse thrombosis throughout all of her extremities. But the worst, most feared complication with this is thrombosis of her vein grafts. So her vein grafts and her native coronaries all thrombosed. She rapidly went into decompensated heart failure, and she had to be reintubated. So fortunately, we had the unit open at this time. This was a few months after we opened it. We saw it happen fast. We started pressors, we intubated her, took her to the cath lab. She actually arrested in the cath lab. We got her back. One of the cardiologists stented one of the grafts and stented her native vessels. Her hit recovered. It resolved eventually. It took some time. And then she walked out of the hospital. Her heart was so sick when this first happened, we thought she might need an LVAD, but she actually walked out of the hospital, and they did a story about her at Lance Corps. But if she had been in a step-down floor and it had not been recognized, at best, we would have been doing CPR on the step-down floor waiting for a unit bed, you know, at worst, she could have died. So this is a real-life example of something like this that's no one's fault. It just happens, but we were able to catch it right away, respond right away. We upgraded her right up to ICU status, and then when she started getting better, we put her back down to step-down status, and she left. We have a lot of stories like this, but this one actually had a picture. And it had a picture of the nurse who we love. We love Rachel. I mean, Rachel's an amazing nurse. And so I wanted to end with that. So I might have gone over time. Sorry about that. And thank you for your attention. Any questions? Yep.
Suddenly have an emergency cabbage, what happens?
That's a great question. So we actually have the old hallway, the old step-down hallway, can still take patients. And invariably, there's a couple of the patients that are in the unit that are like waiting for rehab. So they might be like post-op day 10, waiting for a rehab bed to open. They're basically recovered. They're just in our unit, and they can be moved over to the PCU. Okay. So we can make a bed if we have to. We've never actually had that issue where we just can't get a bed. But it's a good question. It's one that we worried about beforehand. We've been able to get by.
There is a question online, actually, Dr. Wayman.
Sure.
Very comprehensive presentation. Thank you. How does a cardiac surgery program grow in this environment? The volume or size of the program will be capped, excuse me, by the size of the universal unit.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. So this unit has 11 or 12 beds. So we factored into the other question that if we got to a point where we were growing that rapidly, what would we do with our step-down patient? How would we accommodate an influx in volume? And the answer is that the patients who are close to going home, who are basically recovered waiting for rehab, they would go out to another place. And there's the issue of program growth, which we all want, but the more practical thing that happens are these surges. There's a surge where you'll have 2 ECMOs and then an emergency cabbage and then all your elective schedule, and they all come in at once. And how do we accommodate all those people? And so we've only had to do it a couple times because what we figure is with 11 beds and almost everybody, if they don't have a major complication, they're going to leave in 3 to 4 days. We're able to get people out and bring the new ones in. But that is a good question, and that was a problem. That would be a good problem to have if we got that busy. But based on the volumes that we'd had over the last six to 7 years, we didn't think it was going to be an immediate problem. Hope that's good enough answer. Okay. So billing, What it turns out is that when you put the order in, as soon as you put the order in, the billing changes from ICU to step down. So the only challenge really was getting our team. Our nurse practitioners were involved from the very beginning, but sometimes other ones rotate in, or we have somebody else who's not used to being on rounds, and they might not put the order in. And I talked to Tracy, and you can't go back. I tried. You can't go back. She let me do it once, but you can't continually do that. So if somebody didn't put the step down order on Saturday morning, then Monday morning they've been charged for ICU for 3 days, and we've been doing step down care the whole time. So the only billing thing is that you just got to remember to put the step down order in. And I cared a lot because I knew it was going to reflect on the numbers, adversely, but that's the main thing.
A question about the Met team, wondering if you have either before you change the bed model or in other units of the hospital have any sort of medical emergency team that sees patients on the floors.
We have, so after, in the course of this journey, we did get an ICU team that provides, they're a third-party contracted ICU team, and they provide 24-hour coverage at the other hospital. But at this hospital, they are there all day, and then there's a nighttime NP who provides coverage for the entire hospital. Even once we expanded to 32 more beds, the entire hospital. And some of them are not comfortable with cardiac surgery and really not comfortable with mechanical support. So to answer your question, if there was an emergency, that sole provider in the whole hospital will respond with a rapid response team. There's always a rapid response team that will run and assess the patient. But usually by the time they're called, the patient's pretty far gone. But there is a team, but they're not dedicated. Whereas the other hospital in Richmond at St. Mary's, not only is there a 24-hour ICU team, there are 24 ICU cardiac specific. So the cardiac floor has its own MD 24 hours a day. Very different than having no one at night except one NP for the whole hospital. Even the really strong NPs, very familiar with critical care, but it's a lot for one person.
Yeah. You have one question online, well, 3 questions online, but I'll read
Okay.
the first one to you as I
Sure.
walk over. Actually 4 questions online. Do you change the staffing ratios for step-down patients? Oh, that was your question? Okay, he has that question too.
So are you asking does one nurse have 3 patients or?
I guess my question would be, so let's say that you are assigned a step down, so it's the ratio is, let's say, like 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, and then one of those patients decompensates and gets immediately upgraded to ICU care. Do they retain those patients, or are they handing them off to other nurses, particularly if it's an MCS case where it's like it really does require one-to-one care?
Right. So then that patient would then have one-to-one care, and what they would do is assign the whatever other step-down patients that person had will be redistributed to the other nurses. So it's, and then that night they may have to call in an additional nurse.
Okay, another question. How does your institution cope with the loss of ICU beds?
Well, we were in a unique situation in that step-down hallway was converted to an ICU. So we didn't actually lose any beds. The initial 3 pods that were there when I started are still there as ICU beds. That hallway became 11 ICU beds. So they gained 11 ICU beds, and some of them are sometimes step-down beds. So we didn't actually lose any beds, if that makes sense.
Okay. I have a 2-part question online. Well, first, thanks for the presentation. Any pearls on how to bring a multidisciplinary team on board with such a major change? And part 2, how to deal with the risk of losing some good talents due to change?
I think the main pearl was going to the top, especially if you already have a good relationship with the leaders in your hospital, going to them one-on-one early and explaining to them what you're thinking and what you want to do. And if you can get buy-in from them, at least in theory, no one's gonna sign off on anything until you really present all the background data and get everyone on board. But at least getting their buy-in to work with you, I think that's the first step. And then getting all the multidisciplinary leaders, all the people you work with all the time, get them in a room and then show them what you want to do. Similar presentation to this, dig into the literature, show the benefits, give people an opportunity to voice all their skepticism, concerns, or challenge. They may see benefits you didn't think of, but get everybody on the same page. And then I think the third thing was a group field trip is big team bonding, team building activity, and it also creates a sense of ownership on the leadership part, on administrative and the nursing leadership part, because they've gone and they've seen it, and now they want to take it and run with it. And I think that's a huge step, going and seeing. And we did this. We launched a TAVR program at Memorial. We didn't have one. We launched one in 2020. We actually went to Lynchburg, and we had a great visit, and we had all of the hospital leadership. Everyone came. We had a great visit, and then we came back to Memorial, launched a fantastic TAVR program. But taking that site visit is really key in anything you want to change.
Okay. Another question online that may dovetail into what you just said. How do you solve the challenge of getting the buy-in from your ICU nurses?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. So that's a tough one. Some people are on board from the beginning. Some people are never going to change, and some people evolve over time. One thing that did help was one of our nursing directors set up a call with the nursing team from Suburban Hospital, because initially there was a little resistance, a little bit of frustration, and it really helped for our nursing team to talk to their nursing team and understand what some of the challenges were, how to make things better. And I think that helped a lot. It does help the nurses see how much and every single nurse who's had a challenge with this is the first one to say, the patients love it. The patients love it. There's no question the patients love it. Some of the nurses, and how we deal with it, it's one of the things that was in the presentation, is that the nursing leadership really are the ones who had to handle that, not me. They took that off of my shoulders. And it was a couple times on rounds, I was like, come on, you can do it. And they're like, I got a little email that said, stop talking to the nurses. So they wanted me out of there. And because I was trying to recruit like left and right. And so I was like, all right, well, I appreciate, this is already a big hornet's nest. And so I'll let y'all handle it. But I think that seeing the patients get better helps. The other thing that, to answer the question, last piece, is eventually you'll hire new people in, and the people who it doesn't work for them, they're gonna leave eventually. And the new hires will be cross-trained, and you'll have it. That's the way it was at Suburban. That program had been evolved long enough that everyone on there could do both things, and it was very fluid and very easy. It just takes time.
Any other questions?
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Wayman. So, just going to go back to our PowerPoint here just real briefly. We did just want to thank everybody for attending this evening. Thanks to all of our presenters. Thank you to our Collaborator of the Year nominees and awardees. Thank you to all of you for being here tonight, for being part of VCSQI, for being part of this mission together. I really feel like we're making an impact, but there's still a lot of work to be done as well. So onward, upward, please continue to provide your input, provide your feedback to us. Let us know how we can help data with connections, maybe facilitate a field trip to Dr. Raymond's hospital that he seems like he volunteered there. And just onward and upward. But thanks everybody. Please drive safely, and we'll just ask for all of our awardees and nominees just to stay for a quick photo. But with that, I think we're going to end a little bit early. I appreciate you all, and thank you again for being such an integral part of our VCSQI.